Hi there, you're watching Market Cafe on etnow with me, Shreyansi Singh, and over the next 1 hour, me and Priyanka Uppal will be taking you through news and updates from within the country as well as across the globe, tell you which stocks you should be keeping an eye on, and tell you what the brokerages are saying as well. But first things first, let's take a look at what the US markets really did. And when you take a look at what really happened at the end of last week, the market was largely split at the end of last week. So when you take a look at the moves coming in on Friday, the tech-heavy Nasdaq is the one that jumped to a new intraday all-time high as well. So you're looking at a rise of just about 0.6% coming in for that one. On the flip side, you do have the Dow as well as the S&P 500. So the Dow is the one that shed just about 0.6%, closed around those 42,000 levels. Above that actually, and when you take a look at the broad market S&P 500 as well, you're looking at it just going a little bit lower, just a shade lower is where that one was at. But both the Dow and the S&P 500 snapped a 6-week winning streak, but the Nasdaq is the one that eked out its 7th positive week in a row. So that's the kind of move that you saw largely coming in. Now of course the Wall Street is bracing for a big week in terms of what the markets are looking at. That will mark the busiest week coming in of the third quarter earnings reporting season as well. That is something that we're keeping a very close eye on. Other than that, of course, this is a final week before the November 5 US presidential elections. Some volatility is being penciled in, along with a lot of updates coming in from the Magnificent Seven. You have 5 of the Magnificent 7 companies reporting. So you do have Alphabet, Microsoft, Meta Platforms, Amazon as well as Apple that is scheduled to report their third quarter earnings as well. That is something that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on. And in terms of what else is really important to watch out for this week, you do have traders watching out for a slew of key economic data. So I'm talking about September jobs report that is due this Friday. You do have the September personal consumption data or PCE price index also that is expected on Thursday, and a preliminary reading of the third quarter gross domestic product as well. That is also something that we're keeping a very close eye on. So that largely is the kind of handover that we have, at least when it comes to the Wall Street. But when you take a look at oil, then you're looking at a tumble coming in of more than $3 a barrel, at least for oil, after Israel's retaliatory strike on Iran over the weekend bypassed Tehran's oil and nuclear facilities and did not disrupt energy supplies as well. So that largely is something that you're seeing. Of course, there's easing geopolitical tensions, and because of all of these factors combined, you did see the last week being a little complex in terms of what really happened with Brent as well as US WTI, because you did see them just sort of tussle between gains and losses coming in through the course of the week. Both Brent and US WTI hit their lowest level since October 1 at the open as well, and the benchmarks gained 4% last week in volatile trade, just like I mentioned, as markets priced in that uncertainty around the extent of Israel's response to the Iranian missile attack as well. So that is largely something that we were watching out for, at least when it comes to the oil markets. But what really are the events that you should be watching out for? Priyanka, tell us a little more about what's on that list.
Morning, Shreyansi. The way US markets are moving, there's no stopping. This is Nasdaq's 7th winning week, though that's a different story that in India, back home, we've corrected nearly 8%. But the key earnings, but then yes, starting this week, of course, we have a reason to be cheerful because we are approaching festivities. Diwali is nearby. But then what are the events to watch out for today? For Nifty, you will, Sun Pharma and Bharti Airtel, both the earnings would be on tap. Remember, Pharma and in fact, all that defensive pack, that has been the other packs which hasn't fallen that much, the way the kind of intensity we've seen in auto, or for that matter metal or mining or even real estate space. So Sun Pharma would be on tap. Bharti Airtel, telecom pack has not been doing that bad. Bharti Airtel is on a move also. The earnings are here, and let's not forget the kind of earnings which Jio recorded. So there was a tariff hike element which came in, which was registered in Jio's number. That could be an element to watch out for in Bharti Airtel also. Now there are a couple of companies where they are mulling fundraising plans: Skipper, Kalpatru, Adani Power, and even Federal Bank. So these set of stocks could be in action ahead of the fundraising plans and the board meet. And of course, the Dr. Reddy's, that stock goes into stock split. 5:1 is the ratio. And Reliance also, in fact, some sort of movement also happened the day Reliance announced its bonus issue. So this week, this is the week to even eye Reliance, of course, a heavyweight, and the last day to buy shares shares to be eligible for dividends. That list will include stocks like Crude Mobile and Infosys. And of course, the D-Day for Waaree Energy's IPO listing today. And let's not forget the record subscription we saw for Waaree Energy. So a lot of action in terms of earnings. US is also earning heavy week this whole week. In fact, mega cap earnings are on the tab, and that's what driving Nasdaq also.
Well, absolutely. Lots to keep an eye on this week. But let's take a look at global stories. Bright and early this morning, then Japan faces political upheaval as the ruling coalition loses its parliamentary majority for the first time since 2009. Projections show Prime Minister Ishiba's LDP Komeito alliance falling short, securing only 214 seats out of the 233 needed. This historic shift, sparked by inflation concerns as well as corruption scandals, has really rattled markets, with the yen weakening 0.5% against the dollar as well. Ishiba will likely convene top officials for an emergency session today as well, so keep an eye on that as well.
All right, but in the meantime, China's industrial profits, that one has dropped 3.5% year-on basis for the month, for the period from January to September. Now, this highlights struggles in the economic recovery for the country. Weak demand, deflation risk, and a property slump that had already weighted heavily on state and private sector profits. Both have been declining. Now, key industries like coal mining, machinery, and chemicals, that saw sharp declines, while sectors like non-ferrous metals and even textile, that one posted gains.
Moving on, then, Germany's Finance Minister Christian Lindner warns of retaliation if the US ignites a trade war with the European Union, calling it a lose-lose scenario. Speaking at the IMF's annual meeting, Lindner highlighted that potential US tariffs could harm the German economy, which is the former top trading partner with US-China. Tensions also already high. Lindner urged diplomatic efforts to avoid escalating conflict with the EU.
Okay, moving on, the New York Stock Exchange has announced plans to extend their trading on its all-electronic exchange to 22 hours a day. Under the new plan, now the trading on the NYSE Arca Electronic Exchange, that will open at 1:30 a.m. and will close at 11:30 p.m. on weekdays. This is, though, subject to regulatory approvals.
Alright, moving on, then Iran said Israel's recent airstrikes caused limited damage after jets targeted missile factories near Tehran. The strike was in retaliation for Iran's October missile attack on Israel, and both countries exchanged warnings. As tensions rise, US President Joe Biden urged de-escalation. In fact, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu also asserted that the strikes were aligned with Israel's interests, and with the US calls for restraint, all eyes do remain on Iran's next move then.
All right, of course, in fact, that was a little unaffected. But then moving on, McDonald's has ruled out its quarter pounder patties as the source of a deadly E. coli outbreak. Now, tests by Colorado State Department found no traces of E. coli in the patties. Instead, silver onions from Taylor Farms in Colorado are now the likely culprit, according to the FDA. Now, this outbreak that impacted several states, with cases linked to store locations, including some in airports also.